So basically I'm just gonna throw this guy in here. Right now I'm about, I don't know, 12% or something like that. It's never gonna be 2% at this stage. You haven't seated any rings yet. You know, so you haven't heated the engine up and do anything to seat anything. So you're looking for 40% or 50% at this stage in the game. So I wouldn't get too worked up about low numbers. You're just looking for anomalies. So there, I spun over a little bit. It wasn't at TDC. On my bottom dead center, same thing, around 12%. So you can do it. You can run down the line, add air a little bit. The engine will turn over. Not going to mess anything up. Just save yourself a little bit of time. I've done this before, and I learned a costly mistake. One time I was doing one of these engines early on in my career. I didn't do a cylinder leakage test, and what ended up happening was I had one of my cylinder head gaskets was pinched a little bit, and I had the entire engine together, had it in the car, had it ready to go. Went to fire it up, and I had a dead hole, and I had to take the whole thing back out. And at that point in time, I was like, you know what, this is stupid. Let's check things along the way as we go. So that's good. These are all tracking about the same thing, about 12% or somewhere around that range, which I'm happy with. Like I said, it's never going to be perfect just because we haven't seated rings, we haven't done anything. There's no heat in the engine, it's completely cold. So if you guys notice, I'm not turning the engine over, I'm just slapping air in it, grabbing the chain, and letting the chain do its thing. So that saved me 2-3 minutes by doing it that way. So I'm confident now we can slap our chain boxes on, put our arrows away, but I'm confident we can slap our chain boxes on now and measure cam thrust and get all that stuff good to go. So I think the next thing we'll do is we'll grab chain boxes. We do need to do one thing, and that's that we need to address a little situation we've got going on over here. And that situation is our cover. Our cover here still has the gasket on it, so it's been ultrasonically clean, but I missed it. So I thought it was a good opportunity to show you what kind of tools I use. I've got carbon gasket scrapers, I've got regular scrapers, I've got all this different kind of stuff. But what I like to use is just a razor blade. So let me grab a pair of pliers, we'll freshen this blade up. So I just like to use, I got this from my clear bra guy, but it's a super thin blade and it flexes. I don't know if you can pick that up on camera, but it flexes nice and it's super sharp. So what I do is I'm just gonna try to cut underneath this gasket, slide under there, and then I'm just gonna use this blade to cut the old gasket off so I can get it to come off in one piece, and I'm not sitting there fighting all the little pieces. The pieces, probably better if I pull towards me. The pieces are what causes the time to try to get scraped off. So I just pull it around. Try not to cut myself. But I've just found that this is a sort of a better way of doing it versus the traditional old way of using a gasket scraper. I'm not a big fan of gouging aluminum and just causes problems. That's why I like these thin blades, because these thin blades, they don't have enough rigidity to them to get in there and mess anything up. They don't do any damage. They'll probably do a lot of damage to your skin, but they're not going to damage aluminum. And some of the bigger tools like the carbon gasket scrapers, they'll get in there and gouge it. And they don't gouge it when you have a semi-smooth surface. They gouge it when you're trying to get a big piece of something off. So the more prep you can get this way, then you can take the big carbon gasket scraper and do it. But I don't know. We got a different opinion on how this is supposed to be done. And this is how I do it. It's all these big chunks we got to get off. All right, so now we got that good. Now I think we can grab the carbon gasket scraper, get the big stuff off. Actually, I'm gonna get a little bit bigger one. I always feel going wider is better. You get a better base. So I'm just using this to take the fuzz off. So see there where it's hitting it, and it's not getting that little chunk off. You grab the clear blade, whatever this is called, scrape that off of there, and then you glide a lot smoother. I feel like if you sit there and you just try to pound away at that thing, I've gotten myself into situations where I've gouged the aluminum, and the gasket scraper or the gasket material with the anaerobic will be fine, but you'll sleep better. So you can see here now where the center, I've got the edges. The edges have a little bit of shine to them, but that center's hollowed out a little bit. So at this point in time, I'll just take my gun, and I'm not gonna put a lot of pressure. I got a yellow wheel on this. I'm not gonna put a lot of pressure. I'm just gonna drag it. All right, so now I could sit there. These little places right here, these are low spots. I can actually feel it with my hand. This is a low spot in the aluminum. So if I was just to take that gun and just sit there and wail on it, I think I would cause an even lower spot on that aluminum. So at this point in time, I just take a little bit of spray 9 and some Scotch-Brite, and I'll work that, get 90% of it out. And then this Scotch-Brite, I'll give it just a little bit of an etch, which is kind of what you want. I still got a couple spots here, so let's see what we can do with the razor blade. I'll knock that off. And I'm kind of just using the tip. I'm not scratching it bad. But if I can just get the first part of that remaining material knocked off with the scratching the razor blade along it, the Scotch-Brite will take care of the rest. And at some point in time, you got to say, hey, when is this good enough? And when am I gonna pass that point of no return where I start really gouging things up? So a little bit of material on there doesn't bother me because we've got a clean surface for it to bond to, but I prefer it to be shiny. It's more detrimental to have a little bit of this on here than it is to have a big hole from sitting there with the grinder, in my professional opinion. What do I know? But to me, this is good enough. See, that's from a gouge that somebody, you can tell, that's from a gouge that somebody put in there before. I can feel that with my finger. So if I was going to try to get all of that out of there, I'd end up doing more harm than I did good. So as long as I'm flat, I think we're in good shape. So I'm going to call that good to go. Good to reseal anyways. This was a full-on restoration. We'd be putting valve covers on this thing just because, but we'll be fine for this. Something you got to check. You can't just go crazy with the machine. If you go crazy with this machine, you'll get that surface perfect, but you'll have a low spot, and then you're going to be causing yourself a world of hurt later on. All right, so now we're going to get our boxes on. So what I like to do, I just build myself a little tray up here. So on the gaskets for the boxes and anything else, I use green. So the green DOS flange sealant, that is a little bit different than the orange, and the orange is for bigger gaps. And we're not trying to seal, we're not trying to seal bigger gaps on this. We're just trying to put a little film on this gasket. So I like to do it that way. No reason other than makes me sleep better at night. I know I have a little bit of protection on there. So let's make sure we got our right size, our right gasket. And then this, I just take and put a thin layer, nothing crazy. And then smooth it around like this. Like I said, nothing crazy. Just a thin layer, and get it all over your fingers, and then it gets on the other side, and you just want a very, very thin layer on here. Remember, we had a couple imperfections in our bases, and this I feel just helps us give that extra layer of protection. So now we'll come in here and we'll pop this bad boy on. We gotta make sure we orientate ourselves. So this is gonna go on this way. I've already done this, but it's a good idea now to make sure that you don't have any oil that dripped out of your engine onto there. Get this bad boy in here. Get this dowel on, which is there. And then you need wave washers. So the wave washer goes there, along with a non-nylock nut. If you're a dropsy guy and you got butterfingers, put a rag in there. I've seen guys, drop nuts and stuff like that down in there. Another thing you can do is shove your chain in there, keep your chain on the bottom. If you do drop a nut, you'll be fine. It's not the end of the world. We'll throw a light in here so everybody can see. And then we need aluminum washers, the ones that get nylocks, which are these guys up here. So this one gets a nylock on the top, as well as the two on the bottom. If anybody's questioning my engine stands, I built those. So these are 8-inch pipes. So it's an 8-inch pipe welded. And then it's got a 3/8 steel plate up on the top of that. And they're super beefy. I can hang turbo motors on here. I can do pretty much anything, and I've never had an issue with any sag or anything whatsoever. I'm pretty happy with them. I used to work with just the regular old, roll around engine stands that everybody seems to use, and they're not, they're just a pain in the ass. You can't torque anything. It's hard to use them. And then the other thing you can do is you can put it on like a bench over there, but you don't have room to move around it. So I like to stick them out in kind of the middle of the floor and just go to town. I'm not torquing these yet. I'm a torque everything kind of guy at the end. So what I'll do is when we're all said and done, and I've got both cam housings together, I'll throw a torque wrench on those. That way I torque all my bolts sort of at the same time. This is why I like this engine stand, because you can just reach over there and put it in any position that you need. And that one's gonna need a speed handle. Like I said, that's not torqued, but it's enough to get the flange sealant to set. So I'll come back and torque everything later once I get all my stuff together. And then I gotta flip that over because that's on the wrong side. Hope you guys saw that. So this is actually supposed to sit. It's supposed to sit up and the chain sits on top. I remember my first time. So I'm gonna get this other box on over here, and then we'll go through putting the cams and all that stuff together. All right, so now we're gonna get in our cam retainers. First thing we need to do is slide in our camshaft. So I usually get it to that point there, and then I'll come over here and kind of rotate it, try to support it and hold it up. First couple journals are easy. It's this last one that's a little bit more difficult. That's in there. And we need to grab a rag. She turns nice. And then we need to make sure we get all the lube off of this cover right here. So I just take a couple of screws so I don't lose my gasket. Kind of like this. We'll start that one. Oh, I'm all thumbs because there's a camera. There's a camera right in my way here. So I get 2 of those going and get the third one in. What I'll do is I'll tighten one of these down, kind of like to there. And I'll use my little cocaine spoon. Make sure we work that seal around so it's good. And push that guy in. That should take care of that. I'll make sure our keyway is straight up. Now we're to a point to where we can measure cam thrust. So let me get the other cam in. I'll do the same on the other side, and then we'll measure cam thrust. All right, so what we're gonna do now, we're gonna get our cam thrust contraption. I think that's the technical term for it. On this crankshaft. Probably should have set this up before. So it looked like I was a pro. So basically we're measuring the relationship. I skipped a step. We're measuring the relationship between the chain up here and the chain down here. So first thing you got to do is take your dial caliper, zero that out, and then you want to measure the distance of the IMS bearing off the end of the block, 8.5. It's usually about that same number. So 8.5 is our measurement. I'm gonna get this bad boy in here. I'll show you a couple little tricks I have to kind of make this easier. So first thing we want to do is we want to get our spacers in. So this is there's a chamfer here. Chamfer, a flat side. Chamfer goes towards the cams. These are the shims that came out. No idea whether that's right or wrong. Usually it's 3. And then put your timing sprocket on, and you put your chain on. So the right hand side goes out and the left hand side goes in. So this is the right hand side facing out. Slap that bad boy on there. Make sure we go straight. All right, so I know the internet's gonna love me using an impact on a camshaft. It's fine. We use impacts all the time to take crankshaft pulleys off, all that stuff. It is hardened, but we're not striking steel on steel. So deal with it. In your own garage, you do whatever you want. So we knew our measurement was 8.5, and what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna zero this bar. So that's 25.99, and I'm gonna set my gauge to 0, and then I'm gonna find where it hits the center. So we need to come down a little bit, and then what I wanna do is I wanna measure to this surface right here. Measure to that surface right there, and I have 50.73. So what I do now is, in case I need to make an adjustment, I'm just gonna put a black Sharpie because I measured, I got that height where I want it to be. So 50.73 minus 8.5. So 50.73 minus 8.5 is 42.23. We need to be 43.27. So we need to take out, or we need to add a shim, actually. Yeah, we need to add 1 shim to that measurement. So by adding a shim, we push the camshaft spacing backwards. So let me grab a shim, slap this guy back on. Slap this guy back on here. Then we'll pull her back up. Remember, we made a Sharpie mark down here so we can go right back up to that original height where we need it to be. And we'll measure this again. Make sure we're straight. We are 50.3. So 50.3 minus 8.5 is 41.8. Fuck, we went the wrong way. I told you guys we needed to take a shim out. Idiot. See, that's funny because I knew like off the top of my head that there's supposed to be 3 shims in there normally, and it had 4. So why would I try to add one? That's the beauty of filming YouTube. You don't have the music on. We're gonna take 2 shims out. You're not in that zone. Zone, baby. All right, so try that again. $51.3. So 51.3 minus 8.5 is 42.8. We're close. We're close. So we need to be 43.27 and we're 42.8. So if I take another shim out, we'll be at, these are 0.5 millimeter shims, I believe. Let me measure this. Yeah, these are 0.5. So actually we'll be closer. So we'll go ahead and take another one out. Just for poops and giggles, I'm gonna double check myself. 0 of that. Make sure I'm straight. $51.13. So 51.13 minus 8.5. Yep, we still need to take one out. That's fine. We can do that. There's some people that are going to say you didn't properly torque that bolt and this and that. I've done it that way. Trust me, I have. I've done it where you torque the whole bolt down and go through all of those steps. Number doesn't change. I've tried it a couple different ways. Make sure we got the. I've tried it all different ways. Number doesn't change. So now we got 2 shims in. Double check our 0, because that matters when you're trying to get this close. Let me double check it down here. I don't like that. Run this guy in here. Make sure we're straight and square. 51.59. So, we got a QR code. No, we don't want to take a selfie. Come on. 51.59 minus 8.5, 4309. Our spec is 43.2 plus or minus. So we're good. So that's cam thrust. And then basically to do the other side, I'm just gonna flip over to the other side, rinse, wash, repeat, nothing crazy. Check back in with you. All right, so what we gotta get done now is we need to get our camshaft stuff all in. So first thing on the tickets, keyway. So what I like to do here is I just like to grab a keyway, my keyway, and make sure there's no burrs. And if it has a burr, which this one does, I'm gonna show you how to fix that quickly. I'm gonna grab behind you guys, I'm gonna go in the tool chest and grab a file. And then I'm gonna grab my little mini pliers wrench. And basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold it, or try to hold it. Actually, I don't need to hold it. I just take my file like this. I'm just gonna drag it along here and just get that burr off. Not gonna take much. That feels pretty good. So it had just a little tiny burr on it. Basically what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that this goes in here smooth. If not, you'll risk it binding on you. All right, so that feels pretty good. I'm gonna take it in here. And this is one of those things, if you get it in one shot, you go buy a lottery ticket. It would help if we could see what we were doing. I need some light. So I get it started, and then I just grab it with my little pliers there. I make sure that that's set all the way down, which it feels like it is. Let's make sure we can go on here. Yep, slides nice. That's prep is the most important part. You need to make sure that you can get that in there for that. All right, so now I'm at TDC 1, so I know I need to go down with my camshaft. So I need my keyway facing somewhere straight down. Get us close on cam timing. And then we're gonna fight this guy because, you know, we always do, right? We always fight this guy getting him in. So I'm gonna put that guy in there like this. Nice, I'm sitting there nicely on those. Nice and centered on those. And then skipped a step. Grab a tool. We need to get our camshaft keyway in. Whatever random hole it'll go in. Probably there. So we get that guy in there. All right, and then I'm gonna do the same on the other side, and I'm gonna get my mechanical chain tensioner. I just use these for setting up my cam timing. So we'll run in here, and we'll put our, for testing purposes, I guess you could say. Grab a 13. Tension that guy up. Chains are never tight, so, you know, that's plenty. It's not gonna skip, it's not gonna go anywhere. And then, basically the other side is the exact same process. The only thing that's different on this side is it's backwards. Remember we talked about that this one faces with the flat side facing out, and this one's the flat side facing in. And keyway goes up on this one. Make sure that slides in good. And it doesn't. So let me take a little bit of that burr off of there. If you've got a really good file set, you can feel it right there. You don't need to You don't need to file it much. You're just taking the edge of a burr off. You're not trying to round the edges or anything like that. So that feels good. Not trying to get crazy with it. Always helps better. Always helps when you can see. Look at that. Pops it right in like a champ. Then the problem I have is I got the bifocals on, and I don't know, looking over the top, it's super blurry, and I got greasy fingers, and I got to push my glasses up. Tell you what, guys, don't get old. Getting old sucks. Getting old sucks. So we need to roll that guy in just a little bit so it's nice and straight, which I think it is. So that one's good. Good to go. Slide our light back in there. Pull our chain up. I'm gonna have to get over here in your way. Then we're good there. Then we need to grab our little tool here. A little crowded in this place. I kind of want to rotate that cam up just a little bit. See if I can get in there and do that. Not too far. Funny, right back where we had it. So cam timing is one of those things I've seen a lot of guys take a long time to do cam timing. And it's not come on, which hole? Without seeing it. It's hard to build engines, get everybody a good view of what you're doing. Plus, find the right hole sounds like a personal problem. All right, so that's in. Like I said, we verified we were at TDC1, right? So we verified we're at TDC1. We got the left bank cam facing up with the keyway. And we got the bottom cam, or the left side cam facing down, which is the proper orientation. Throw that guy in here. There we go. All right, so now we are ready to throw a rocker in.